In this lesson, we're going to look at how you use a microscope. So the first thing we got to look at are the different types of microscopes, and we're going to look at three particular types. The first one is a light microscope, and the purpose of a light microscope is to look at small stuff like cells, but one of the drawbacks is light has to be able to go through it, so we can't use it for a lot of other things. So this is a light microscope. This is kind of the standard microscope that you think of, and we're going to be using these at least a number of times in this class. Next we have an electron microscope, and this is for really small stuff like bacteria, and it can give you a huge amount of detail. So this is an electron microscope. Obviously we don't have one of these. These are real fancy, cost huge amounts of money, but they give you images like this. This is not something that you could see on a light microscope. So these are extremely detailed images of very small things. Last, we're going to have what's called a dissecting scope. And this is to look at bigger stuff, like if you're trying to look at the parts of a leaf, or bugs, or things like that. And one of the good things about these is that light doesn't have to go through the object that you're looking at. So here's a dissecting scope. We're going to use these a couple times in the class later on as well. And here's an example of an image that you can see through a dissecting scope. So notice light can't pass through the spider, but you can see all the details. So now let's look at what the parts are. Before we look at some of the specific ones, the two that I want to bring up are the arm and the base. This is how you should always carry a microscope. Hand under the base, holding it by the arm. That way we can make sure our microscopes stay nice. Now, the four parts that you really need to know are first, the ocular lens, which is also known as the eyepiece, the objective lenses, and they're called the objective lenses because they're very near the object that you're looking at. We have the coarse adjustment knob and the fine adjustment knob. And so we're going to use these in order to adjust the magnification. So how do I actually focus a microscope? You're always going to start on the lowest magnification. If you try and start on a high magnification, that's like trying to find something that you dropped by putting your face an inch from the floor and then moving around. You're never going to be able to find anything. You want to start big and then move higher and higher in magnification. When you're on the lowest magnification, you're going to use the coarse adjustment knob. It causes a lot of movement and a big focus change. So on a low magnification, we use it to get it pretty close. Then as we increase the magnification, we're only going to use the fine adjustment knob. And this is really important because if you try and use the coarse adjustment knob at a high magnification, you're just going to go in and out of focus and you're never going to be able to see anything. So the next thing we got to look at is how do you actually determine the magnification? So what you're going to do is you're going to find the magnification of the eyepiece. Then you're going to find the magnification of the objective lens, and these are both written on the lenses. And then you're just going to multiply the numbers together. So the total magnification that you're looking at is the eyepiece times the objective. So for example, the eyepieces on our microscopes are generally 10x. So they magnify the object 10 times. And then we have objective lenses that are 4, 10, and 40. So the total magnification at the lowest setting would be 40, then 100, and then 400. And then finally we're going to look at how you actually make a slide, because we're going to do this at least once or twice in this class. So the first thing, obviously you're going to get your materials. Whether it be we're going to do a cheek swab or a piece of a leaf or some other types of cells. You're going to put the object on the slide in the center. We usually use some sort of stain or other solution so that you can actually see it, because most of these things tend to be relatively clear. And then you're going to place a cover slip on it. And we're going to place the cover slip on it to try and keep any air bubbles from forming, because otherwise it's going to be really hard to see. So I think about putting the cover slip on kind of like you do a sticker. You don't just try and slap it straight down. That's how you get all kind of bubbles. You put it, start on one side and then roll it to the other side. And then we're going to use a paper towel to remove any excess solution or stain, and then we can put it on our microscope and look at it.